Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order for our Committee of the Whole, Tuesday, May 19. And first order of business is motion on the agenda. I don't think there's been any additions or changes. Councilor Patel makes the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Unfinished business. We want to talk about police funding and I would expect our Director of Finance will be speaking to this, so I'll pass it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council.
Anthony, were you introducing it?
Yeah,
Sorry, your name's
Anthony's going to talk to
All
this.
right, sorry. I didn't have your thing up yet. Very good.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would have gladly had Chris speak to it. Everyone wants to talk about police funding, but nobody does. So Council is well aware of the current situation that we're in with I think this was kind of kicked off with the 5-year forecast. And essentially that began our search for understanding the numbers. I guess the significant change from in 26, 27, it says that 22% of the cost is the percentage that they say we pay 262. And by 2030, 31, they say a 30%. So only an increase of 8% in the cost, we have 777,000. That part is still perplexing to me. Like, I don't understand all the math on that. But I do feel like we have received a little more in understanding. I think a big part of that was where we had a meeting with the division officer, the DO, and we sat down with them and with our local acting sergeant right now, and we brought this up. We brought up the costs, and we wanted to know, so what does it cost? Because the province hasn't given us any responses that make a whole lot of sense, and so we decided to talk to the RCMP, at least so we could understand the costs. Because at the very least, if we know what's going into this, perhaps we can, better, we can come to peace, I guess, with the amount. And so one thing, and I didn't include it in the submission here. One thing that we learned from the DO and from the RCMP was that behind every constable on the ground, boots on the ground, the support and everything that goes into each RCMP member that we see out on the streets, they gave us an estimate that it costs about $340,000. And that might sound like an astronomical number, but sometimes when you think about, I guess things to think about are the support staff, the vehicles, the investigators, all the other things that go behind a police officer, and the special resources that exist that can be called upon in a time of need. That was a very, like, we didn't get a huge report or anything like that. That was just the estimate that they were able to share with us. But if anything, that helps support a larger amount. Sure, like, we understand that there's a large cost. And fortunately, the RCMP have reached out, and they're willing to sit down with us and do a bit of a presentation on the costs and on costing. And so if council has questions or specifics that we want to pull out of the RCMP, we can do so and set up something, whether just us or whether with a few other perhaps our neighbors. And so, like I said, I feel like we have a little bit more an understanding as far as some of the costs that go into this. From an administrator's perspective, we still don't feel like we've received a very strong answer from the province as far as how it works to go from 22 to 30 and increase at such an astronomical rate. Questions, comments, direction from council at this point. This is committee of the whole, a little less formal, but I would love to keep moving this forward.
Yeah, so it's a big discussion. I think it's a little bit hard to ask, depending on who we're asking to, right? Because in a sense, you have the province that we are paying, but they're working with the RCMP. I I still think it's worth trying to get more information from the RCMP as to, yeah, they gave that number, but I've never seen that stat number before. In some ways, like someone's got to be putting these numbers out. Like, I don't know how that works. Because they do have a lot of backup support, I agree. Like between admin, operating expenses, investigation teams, they offered to have us come tour their facility in Airdrie, was it? One of their locations where they will show us exactly their team there that essentially responds, prioritizes calls throughout Alberta and Western Canada. I can't remember where the location was. It was, yeah, I think it was Edmonton, wasn't it? But yeah, we said, well, maybe next time we were up at Alberta Municipalities Conference, it'd be nice to go tour the facility because it'd be neat to see what goes on behind the scenes. They were talking a few examples of how they prioritize calls that goes to that, and then they pull resources from all over the province to be able to respond to larger events. Bottom line, how do we get to know what the true cost of municipal policing is? And like, are we paying into something that really is a federal jurisdiction? Is it ours? Is it province? And I don't know how in the world anyone's going to get to that. I do think the one question I had on the, I believe it's a document that you have up, is what do they mean by some of the formulas? They're talking, they had their reassessment and then occurrence. I think it was on the last document in the package. Yeah, right about there. Like the base formula is based on 45, well, currently it's at 50% assessment and then 5% occurrence, and then it ratchets up to 20% occurrence. Does anyone know what occurrence means? Is that just the volume of calls? Yeah, sure. You have to pull it out, I think.
Okay, fine. And in reading this, and of course you come up with all these formulas, it's like trying to figure out the designated industrial property assessment that comes from the province. To me, the formulas aren't really that relevant. Anthony brings up totally respectful point that in 5 years, our percentage of the cost will be covering increases 35%, but the cost we're actually paying is going up 300%. So the province can come up with any formula they'd like to come up with to take our taxpayers' money from our property taxes. This is a download. You can call it, you can make up whatever formulas you'd like. This is the province downloading the cost of policing onto municipalities. And that is something that I think should be concerning to us. You know, what if they come back and say, now we'd like to charge a percentage of hospitals to it's no different. It's under the provincial realm, and this is a download onto me. This is a lot of money. This isn't a little increase. This is like $500,000+ annually that they're going to increase our costs. So I wasn't really that concerned over the formula because they can come up with any formula they'd like to get whatever amount of money they desire. But is this the end of it? Because I can tell you back in 2016, 2017, this was never the motive to take that much money. They were going to get a contribution from municipalities, but now it's looking like a golden goose. And yeah, I don't know how else to put it.
Councillor Monteith.
I would agree. This isn't what makes up the charge. This is provincial downloading, and they can do whatever they want with it. But you would think from a political perspective, and I realize they screw this up all the time, would have an explanation sheet or something, so at least people might understand what they're doing. But these costs were all here 7, 8 years ago when we weren't paying anything. And I understand when they said communities under 5 are going to have to start paying, but, and I'll repeat this again. At the time the minister told us we were getting new services for the money we were paying. And that is not what happened. And they cannot explain what we got for this. So this is pure politics. And I'm ranting a bit here, but we've seen so many examples of that with our provincial government that it's just disgusting. So I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, Councillor Butchers.
We always enjoy a good rant from Councillor Monteith on the provincial government. Thank you. But I do agree with Councillor Monteith and Councillor Patience as well, where, you know, it just seems like a pure cost-saving attempt by the province, because it is, well, which leads to my question is, you know, I'd like to see what the province is now budgeting for policing. If this is purely just cost-saving, that, you know, I think it was 380 million was their budget for last year. So is this going to be a 30% decrease in that, and they're not going to add any more to the pot? It's pure downloading onto the municipalities, or what their forecast for their contributions are going forward here. So yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow for sure. And I agree that, you know, there's a lot of details or a lot of things that aren't that we haven't received yet for this.
Yeah, there's there's the argument to be made that there's only one taxpayer, so there's not really anything to download. Someone's got to pay for it eventually somewhere. It's just how it gets communicated, I think, is our biggest beef, because in my opinion, like, the letter we received back from the province doesn't explain anything. Like, if we had a good understanding of historic costs of policing over the years, and the RCMP costs are going through the roof, and these percentages are only there to try to keep up with that increase, that could be one thing that we need to consider. But in the end, yeah. So I think the question is, do we want to provide a response to the RCMP and meet with them to have a discussion with them? Or do we reply to the letter? I think is that the two things that were up for discussion primarily?
And, yeah, whether we want to meet, well, I think we should meet, and what kind of questions we might have for that meeting.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, our response to our most recent letter.
And I don't know that they're I don't know if they would be meeting. Yeah, I guess a presentation for funding questions, right? So they would come to council. So what kind of questions would we have for the RCMP regarding policing and policing costs?
You know, if I might, it's not the RCMP that's billing us.
That's the issue right now.
It's the province that's billing us. The province has a contract with the RCMP through K Division, right, to provide policing. So it's really the provincial government, not the RCMP, that are responsible for this
for sure.
cost increase.
Yeah, we recognize that. And I think that's where it's a hard one to have, what do you ask the RCMP? In some ways, I think it's still good to ask them, like, what are the true costs of municipal policing? Because we don't know that, and will they tell us? I don't know. Because automatically it still goes through the province and back to us, so we don't know. So yeah, do we want to reply or have questions asked to the RCMP? I think becomes the question. Councillor Monteith?
I would say yes. I'd say we go up the ladder, because we'll learn something from the RCMP and then we can apply that to talking to the provincial government. I mean, I'm not real hopeful on this provincial government talk, but it would be nice is when they said, okay, Fort Macleod, we're taking an extra $500,000 from you, along with every other under 500,000 town in Alberta. We're taking all this money, but we're reducing what we're taxing you on the other hand. But all this is doing is more of a cash grab for the province, and we're getting nothing, and and things are still going up elsewhere, deficit's still going up. They're not changing their behavior, yet they're hauling all this money in. Like, that's what I'd like to know. Like, what's the philosophy here?
So back to the RCMP questions. Do you have any recommendations of what to ask the rest RCMP?
I would ask the dollar and cents questions.
Like,
How much it costs to run Fort McLeod?
so starting, say, at the overall, like, the overall K Division costs, how much of that's from
Well,
rural
and how they
Alberta?
determine that too, like, this full costing can be very,
Well,
it can hide
Once-
things.
once you start, we have to know what we're gonna do with that information
Yeah.
too, because say there's something in there that's
Well,
we don't like or
that would
don't.
be the question. What are you including in all this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you including the janitor in South Saskatchewan or, and
Yeah.
all the costs that you're allocating everywhere? So, yeah, what are the costs? What are you included? What isn't included if there's anything? And somehow I doubt
Well,
that.
would you ask the question, could we contract direct with the RCMP?
No, well, no, I don't. I guess it's, what can they say? Somehow I don't think it's cheaper, but,
Maybe it's double the amount. Triple.
yeah.
Well, I think those are things that we kind of have to, yeah, and I get it, it's a higher cost. I don't like it either.
Well, I
But
also
anyway.
asked them, what were the costs 5 years ago?
Yeah,
Because is this strictly an increase in cost, or is this just the government wanting
so
to
you
strip
would
more
like to
from us?
know 5-year, maybe even 10-year RCMP contract costs with the province? Per
Yeah,
capita?
because maybe I'm ranting at the wrong people, but I somehow doubt it.
It probably should be per capita, no? As the population goes up.
Should people pay more or less for policing just because they live somewhere?
If the cost per person is going way up, that's a true cost, I would
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
If the cost per person stays stagnant or even drops, then that would be a
Well, there's no
different
doubt the
story.
cost went up under the new agreement, but did it go up that much?
Yeah.
That's what I would be interested in.
So I don't know how that helps, Anthony. So do we agree that we would like to still request a presentation from the RCMP? No one's against that? I don't think it can hurt, besides maybe getting us into some trouble with the province. But as long as we're getting right and I think the caution was make sure you're talking to the right people. If we're getting information that's not qualified or quantified, then that could cause some problems too. But how do we determine that? I don't know. So bottom line, I think we can explain we can give the police funding model to the RCMP and ask them, because I still don't understand percentages. It's going from 22% to 30%, I think it was. And I think to Councillor Patience's point is how does that equate to $500,000?
We do know there was a retroactive pay
Yeah.
as part of the new RCMP contract, but that was a one-time hit, right? So, yeah, and I don't know, does the province have expenses on their side for overseeing the contract with the RCMP? That's something else we don't know, right? So there could be some intangibles here too at play that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
Well, we are aware of that they're trying to drain a whole lot more money out of us, right?
There's a lot more overlap too in the last number of years, I think, with provincial sheriff policing coming on. Like, I don't know where the line is drawn. Like, I gotta imagine the amount of law enforcement in a province, quantity-wise, overall, is probably a lot higher than it was 5 to 10 years ago. But do we know?
I don't think the sheriff's part of this conversation, though.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying that didn't exist however many years ago, right?
well, I've said this many times, and I don't say it jokingly. I don't know why they outlaw wood or radar on the QE2 highway. I don't say
Yeah,
it.
they should outlaw.
I don't say it jokingly. Like, Like seriously, you want
That's-
people to
that's
pay
a-
for the,
That's a
pay for
tax
the
grab
service that use
downloading.
it. A tax grab is sending us a bill for 3 times what we're paying now to cover 35% more of the expense. That's a tax grab. It's just through our pockets, right? Not through someone who's actually committing an offense that I have no problem with them paying.
So regarding the RCMP, do we have something I can,
Yeah, I'll just review what I intend to send back, and you can let me know if I'm hitting the mark. So understanding the costs, I think we could take a look at the cost locally, like Fort McLeod specific, and then if there's like a region and then the whole province, and then getting a bit of a cost history. Do we want to request as far back as 10 years? Like at a high level, obviously.
5 to 10?
5 to 10?
and Rough, and somehow with a population component in it too?
And we can always take their information and throw it
Yeah,
onto
sure.
the population too, if they don't do that. Take a look at their estimated costs going forward, right? Like what their projections are. A little more into that. Do we want to discuss, I just had a question mark, as far as like direct contract with RCMP? I don't know if that's a little off the mark, but I don't know if it's a real possibility, but.
I don't know if it'd even be feasible, but it
Right.
doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay,
What about like changes of services over the last 10 years? Because I know when we met with them, they shared a lot of the different things they're doing and this and that. And a lot of that's unknown to the general public too.
yeah. Yeah, and that's about what I got. And was there
Anything else we're missing, council? Anything you're burning to ask? Like a lot of it is, yeah, the efficiency of the program too, right? Like how much of it is, and that discussion happens in every big service provider, how much of it is overhead and how much is actually boots on the ground doing the work? And is that number going way up? And if so, why? So there's got to be reasons for it. All right, so that's the RCMP components, and then response to the letter that we got from the minister. Do we want to reply to that with further questions? Like in my opinion, I think we respond again saying it's not answering our questions.
I'd recommend we be as vague as he is, but I don't think that'll accomplish anything.
No, I think bottom line is we want a clear understanding of the policing costs in the province, what, how we still don't know how they get to the numbers. And what is the goal beyond that 30%? Is that, those aren't increases year over year, were they? They were. Like the percentage 22 to 30, that's not year over year increases, right? That's just.
My understanding was that was just representing the portion that municipalities will be paying towards this.
Yeah. Yes. To me
Yeah, because
it's-
when you look at how the numbers increase in the municipal share, it doesn't add up to those percentages.
Yeah, that's, like, if we ran our own percentages on that, it's like, it still doesn't make sense. Like that 22% would have to be like 10% for these numbers to make sense. How I do math. So yeah, I think and I think the province needs to do a better job on why these costs are warranted. Give us some historic data. What did the previous 10 years look like? So I think we would all agree that providing a letter back would be healthy, no? And I would CC our MLAs on both of these. And anyone else? Oh, yeah.
Brent, if you read this one piece, it says base cost calculations are derived from 2024-25 PPSA frontline policing actuals with an assumed year-over-year increase of 8%. So even if you geometrically add 8%, it doesn't come to 300 in 5 years.
No.
So
Like, so you're saying, like, not only this increase, but there's also the 8% increase year over year. Yeah. The presentation of their information is definitely lacking. I think our tax notice was much more accurate. Does that kind of summarize what council would like to ask for now? Anything else towards the province? Like, to me, it's what happened the last 5 years and what's going to happen the next 5 years after the 2030. Are we going to be looking at it? We have no clue. Like, now is the time to start being noisy if that's the goal, is that it's going to keep going up.
Yeah, they won't stop at 30.
That would be the assumption.
Yeah.
And that's,
That would be my assumption.
and maybe it's only the 8% then, I don't know, but year over year increase. So, yeah. I don't know, has admin worked these numbers backwards at all to figure out if they know how these numbers work? With the 8% and the increases? Councillor Patel? Yeah, it's plus that 2%, right? It's not 2%, it's 2% of whatever number they're gonna use, I'm not sure. 22% of our total cost.
So Chris, how many mill rates is that going to be in 3031?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that Bill 20 passed last week, and now we can break out this police funding model amount as requisition like we do for education on our tax notices, which doesn't make any difference. The number that we have to charge the taxpayers of this municipality is the same to get that money, whether it's buried in our municipal mill rate or if it's a separate mill rate for police funding. I'm not exactly sure how many mills that's going to be, and I'm not sure yet either if we can split it up, residential police funding versus non-residential police funding, and there's a different mill rate for the two assessment classes. So there's lots of questions that we have to get into before the next mill rate bylaw for sure.
Go ahead. See you, Bridget.
Miranda, can I plug in? I'll just show, I mean, we knew the math didn't math, but I didn't actually math it before. Make this larger. I'm plugged in, Miranda. Is it supposed to be showing up? Come on. Am I plugged in on that side? We'll see if it shows up. Anyway, I will explain, and I'll share this with council. Right, everyone knows that that doesn't make any sense, but just to check the numbers, by taking, oh, is it showing up? There you go. So this was it 26, 27, 28, 29, 30? So you take your 262 from 2026, they said it was 22%, so that would equal this. And then this is the next year, which is actually 8%. But as you go down, the next year after that is 24%, 22%, and 33%. So you see that their total amount is growing a lot faster than at 8% annually, essentially. Because if it was growing at 8% annually, the last number should be 1.6 million, which would mean our amount will be 486 at 30%. So this column here is if we took our 1.192, which is what created this 262,000. Anyway, essentially, if it was increasing at 8%, we would land at 486,000 in 2030, but by reversing into the amount that they've given us and the percentage that they say that that amount is of the cost, they're increasing at 24, 22, and 33%. So just thought that'd be.
Yeah, so, like, I think the first year kind of makes sense, right? Like, I could get from 262 to 309 based on it being, because essentially from 22 to 24 is about a 10% increase. 22. So that one kind of makes, yeah, that one made sense, but after that, it's doesn't seem to be making sense.
We could pretty this up a little bit and just include it in our information. It was like, please explain the 33% increase from 29 to 30. Yeah, I mean, we all knew looking at these numbers that they don't match out, but oh yeah, we'll
Pie
polish it up
charts
nice.
and and historically we were 0 up until when? 2019 or something? Yeah, and then after. Okay. So do we have enough info for that? Yeah. Any other comments on this from council? Let's talk about the birds and the bees. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Lisa.
So as council is aware, on the April 13th council meeting, a public request was brought forward to review the licensing fee associated with bee and hen program that was added to the bylaw a year or so ago. So at council's direction, we are here to seek further clarification and discussion on whether council wants to proceed with adjusting that fee schedule and what that looks like. As I mentioned in my submission, we have low number of applicants, so we don't have a whole lot to go on to kind of evaluate the program. The fee structure is what it is, and it's not super, it's $50, so it's not a super large or high fee, but that's kind of where we had landed when we initiated the program. Council may wish to consider implementing a one-time registration fee, and then just a licensing fee with that annual renewal at no cost, just to confirm that that property is still keeping hens or bees on it. But they do vary across the province. So when we're looking at some other municipalities, Calgary being one that does a beekeeping license. So for one hive, it was $12 with additional licensing required for that second hive. And then hens, 2 to 4 hens being $72. High River is $75 a year for bee and chicken license. Nanton is $60 for chickens, up to only 3. And then $100 for bees, up to 2 hives. Rocky Mountain House, $75 annually for urban beekeeping, and that is renewed annually. Stony Plain is $150 for the first year application license with a 25 annual renewal, so they reduce it quite a bit after that first year. And then Diamond Valley is 30 for backyard hen license of 6 hens. And the renewal rate is the same annually. There's lots out there, and like I said, they do vary across the province, so I just kind of showed a few that had some varying rates there. We are happy to have a little bit further conversation and go from there. So I ask for council's input on this.
Very good. So right now, the recommendation is more just information. There's not a lot of justification
I don't
for a
have a
change.
recommendation. It's basically just at the request of the resident who came and presented to council to consider that and felt that it may be considered a barrier for people to register if the cost is too high for them. And in keeping with the dog licensing program, it is $40 for an unaltered dog and $20 for an altered dog. So we get pretty good compliance with the dog licensing program. So there is that to keep in mind, that if we are looking at pricing, that could be a consideration.
Okay. Any thoughts from council? Do we want to do anything with this information? Leave the bylaw as is? Councillor Monteith?
I would recommend leaving the way it is. You look at the dollars here, we're talking nothing. And I don't think, I think I've said this before, purpose of putting this in wasn't to encourage people to keep chickens and bees. It was to somehow monitor those that did have it. So I don't think our fee was going to be an incentive for people to do it. And I don't think it'll be a hindrance. So I would leave it as it is. It's almost like a nuisance.
I can't believe you said that. Nuisance. Any other thoughts, questions on this topic? Like, bottom line, I think if we solicit feedback from people, if someone's interested in humming and hawing and the price is the issue, then sure, council can bring it back and look at it. But for now, I don't think there's much justification to make a change. Councillor Patience?
Yeah, if I might, so with the chickens, for instance, the bylaw doesn't allow the selling of the chicken, meat, eggs, anything like that, right? So they're meant for personal consumption. I would assume the same applies to bees. Like, I don't think having 2 bees would suggest a commercial operation, do you know what I mean? So this is a hobby for, I think, most people. $50 is not an expensive business license, for instance, right? And there is some work because neighbors have to be contacted and ensure that they're fine with it. And I would assume you'd have to do it annually because you have new neighbors, right? And they might not consent for the next annual permit. So I don't know. I appreciate where he was coming from. But I also know he does this commercially, which is great because he makes a great product. We buy it all the time. So, but I don't think that's necessarily what it was intended for in an urban setting, right? It was more of a to help provide food security along with the chickens. That's what I assume anyway. So when I saw the fee structures that Lisa brought up, it actually were low. And I wouldn't suggest increasing it either, but I'm not certainly disagreeing with Councillor Monteith. I think you need to have something because you're going to have to administer that annually as well. So,
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Councillor Waitress?
Yeah, I had this same question that Councillor Patience had, and in the bylaw, yeah, there is nothing that says about the selling of honey or other bee products. But yeah, it does say, you can't sell eggs or manure or meat from chickens. And yeah, so, I guess if the idea behind somebody's motivation to get a beehive is to try to provide some food, save some money, and, I don't know how much, well, I think Mr. Knopf said how much honey 2 beehives can produce and what that dollar amount is. I can't remember. Okay. Yeah, so, the $50 annual fee takes a chunk out of that. But again, you look at the cost of what it takes to, set up your own beehives and the maintenance and everything. So it doesn't seem, I don't know if that's the best way to save grocery money, is by getting bees. So I think right now I'm okay with keeping the fee as is.
Okay. All right, so if that's kind of good for now, if it doesn't mean we can reconsider it in the future, but if we get a lot of people asking, then maybe the second, third year, the price comes down, I don't know. But, okay. There's nothing else on that, and I don't believe there's any in camera, so that means our meeting is adjourned. Anything else you needed to highlight?